Imagine discovering that wealth was never about money, but about frequency. That abundance is not something you achieve, but something you become. This is not another book about finances or investment strategies. It is the definitive map for reprogramming your financial reality from the deepest level of consciousness. For centuries, the true secrets of wealth creation have been guarded within mystical traditions and the most advanced scientific discoveries. Today, for the first time, neuroscience, quantum physics, and ancient wisdom unite to reveal what intuitive millionaires have always known. You don't attract wealth, you vibrate wealth. Through 10 transformative chapters, you will discover how to reprogram the scarcity code embedded in your subconscious, elevate your energetic vibration to the frequency of abundance, and align every thought, emotion, and action with the most prosperous version of yourself. More than theory, this is a complete protocol for inner transmutation, a process that has already transformed thousands of lives around the world. Prepare to discover that your current financial situation is not your destiny, but merely the reflection of an obsolete mental program. It's time to rewrite that code and awaken to your true, abundant nature. Chapter 1: The Code of Scarcity. Your financial reality is not a reflection of the economy, the market, or your circumstances. It is the precise mirror of a program running silently in the depths of your subconscious mind. What if I told you that every financial struggle you've ever experienced was not because you lacked opportunity, education, or even luck? What if the real culprit behind your money challenges has been an invisible code, a program running in the background of your mind like software you never knew was installed? Sarah thought she knew why she couldn't break through her income ceiling. For 15 years, she had blamed the economy, her industry, even her gender. She worked harder than anyone in her office, stayed late, took courses, networked relentlessly. Yet every time she got close to the financial breakthrough she craved, something would happen. A client would cancel. An opportunity would evaporate. A sudden expense would drain her savings. What Sarah didn't realize was that she was carrying her grandmother's voice in her subconscious. A woman who lived through the Great Depression and programmed an entire generation with the belief that money doesn't grow on trees and rich people are greedy. These weren't just sayings to Sarah's developing mind. They became the fundamental operating system of her financial reality. The subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a memory, a belief, or a current experience. To your subconscious, your grandmother's Depression-era fears are happening right now, in this moment, influencing every financial decision you make. This is the code of scarcity, a collection of limiting programs that run automatically, creating your financial reality from behind the scenes. The invisible prison. Most people believe their financial limitations are external. They point to their education, their background, the economy, or their current circumstances. But here's what cutting-edge neuroscience reveals. Your external financial reality is nothing more than a projection of your internal programming. Your subconscious mind, which operates at 40 million bits of information per second compared to your conscious mind's mere 40 bits per second, is running programs installed before you were 7 years old. These programs were created when your brain was in a highly suggestible theta state, absorbing everything around you like a sponge. Think about it. Between birth and age 7, you were essentially in a hypnotic trance, downloading the beliefs, attitudes, and emotional patterns of everyone around you. If your parents argued about money, stressed about bills, or expressed fear about financial security, Those emotional signatures became part of your programming. If you heard phrases like, "We can't afford that," "Money is the root of all evil," or "You have to work hard for money," these statements didn't just enter your conscious awareness. They became commands to your subconscious operating system. The tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives trying to overcome their financial limitations, using their conscious mind, the weakest part of their mental apparatus. It's like trying to run the latest software on a computer from 1995. The conscious mind can set goals, make plans, and work harder, but if the subconscious programming is running a scarcity code, it will sabotage every conscious effort. This explains why lottery winners often lose everything within a few years. Their conscious mind received millions of dollars, but their subconscious programming couldn't handle that level of abundance. The deeper programs of unworthiness, fear, and limitation eventually reasserted themselves, creating circumstances that matched their internal blueprint. The neuroscience of financial programming. Here's where modern science becomes absolutely fascinating. When neuroscientists study the brains of people with different financial realities, they discover that wealthy individuals literally have different neural pathways than those struggling with money. Their brains are wired differently at the cellular level. But here's the revolutionary part. These neural pathways aren't fixed. The brain's neuroplasticity means you can rewire these circuits at any age. Every time you think a thought, you create a neural network. Think that same thought repeatedly, and you strengthen that network. Think thoughts of abundance, worthiness, and financial success consistently, and you begin to build new neural highways in your brain. However, and this is crucial, you must do more than just think positive thoughts. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion. It needs to feel the new reality, not just think about it. This is why affirmations often fail. You might repeat, "I am wealthy," 1,000 times. But if you're feeling worried about your bills while saying it, you're actually reinforcing the feeling of financial stress. The key is to combine new thoughts with new feelings, and then anchor those experiences in your body through repetition. When you do this consistently, something remarkable happens. Your brain begins to fire and wire new neural networks that match abundance rather than scarcity. The emotional signature of money. Most people have no idea that they carry an emotional signature around money, a distinct feeling that automatically arises whenever they think about their finances. For some, this signature is anxiety. For others, it's shame, anger, or hopelessness. Whatever your emotional signature is, it's broadcasting a signal to the quantum field around you, attracting experiences that match that emotional frequency. Consider Michael's story. He grew up watching his father work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. He absorbed not just the belief that you have to work hard for money, but the emotional signature of exhaustion, stress, and struggle that accompanied his father's relationship with money. As an adult, Michael found himself recreating the same pattern, working incredibly hard but never feeling financially secure, no matter how much he earned. The emotional signature of scarcity creates a vibrational frequency that actually repels opportunities. When you feel lack, fear, or desperation around money, you transmit that energy in every interaction. Potential clients, employers, and business partners can sense this energy, even if they can't consciously identify it. They make decisions based on these subtle, energetic impressions. Conversely, when someone has genuinely reprogrammed their emotional signature around money, when they feel naturally abundant, worthy, and secure, they transmit a completely different frequency. They attract opportunities, partnerships, and resources almost effortlessly because their energy is aligned with abundance rather than scarcity. This isn't mystical thinking. It's quantum physics. Everything in the universe, including your thoughts and emotions, exists as energy vibrating at specific frequencies. The frequency you hold around money determines what you attract into your experience. Breaking the generational code. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of the scarcity code is that it passes from generation to generation like genetic DNA. The financial struggles of your great-grandparents created emotional patterns that influenced your grandparents, who then passed modified versions to your parents, who transmitted their own adaptations to you. You might be living out financial patterns that originated 3 or 4 generations ago, in circumstances completely different from your current reality. Your great-grandmother's fear of poverty during wartime might still be influencing your reluctance to invest or take financial risks today. But here's the empowering truth. You have the power to break this generational chain. When you reprogram your own financial consciousness, you not only change your life, you change the trajectory for all future generations of your family. You become the pattern interrupt that shifts your entire lineage toward abundance. This is why your financial transformation is not selfish. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give your children and their children. When you model a healthy, abundant relationship with money, you install new programming in the young minds around you. Instead of passing on fear and limitation, you transmit confidence, possibility, and financial wisdom. The path forward. The recognition of the scarcity code is not meant to discourage you. It's meant to liberate you. Once you understand that your financial struggles are not personal failures, but simply the result of outdated programming, you can begin the process of conscious reprogramming. This journey requires more than positive thinking or surface-level changes. It demands a complete rewiring of your subconscious operating system. It requires you to identify the specific programs running in your mind, understand their origins, and systematically replace them with new codes that support abundance and prosperity. Over the next 9 chapters, you'll discover the precise methods for accomplishing this transformation. You'll learn how to access your subconscious programming, how to install new patterns using the latest insights from neuroscience and quantum physics, and how to embody the energetic frequency of abundance so completely that your external reality has no choice but to reflect your internal transformation. The code of scarcity has been running your life long enough. It's time to upgrade your operating system and install the abundance program that will finally align your external financial reality with your deepest desires and highest potential. Your journey to financial freedom begins not with changing your circumstances, but with changing the invisible programs that create those circumstances. Welcome to the beginning of your complete financial reprogramming. Chapter 2. The Quantum Physics of Abundance. At the quantum level, wealth is not something you acquire. It's a frequency you tune into. Your bank account is simply the material expression of your energetic vibration. What if everything you've been taught about creating wealth is backwards? What if, instead of chasing money, opportunities, and success in the external world, the secret lies in first becoming a vibrational match to abundance at the quantum level? David was a brilliant engineer who understood complex systems, algorithms, and the precise laws that govern technology. Yet for years he struggled financially despite his intelligence and work ethic. He approached wealth creation the same way he approached engineering, as a mechanical process of inputs and outputs actions and results. But wealth, he was about to discover, operates according to entirely different laws. The breakthrough came when David learned about quantum field theory and realized that his financial reality was not governed by the mechanical laws of cause and effect he knew so well, but by the mysterious principles of quantum physics, the same principles that govern how particles become waves, how observation affects reality, and how information travels instantaneously across vast distances. At the quantum level, wealth doesn't exist as money, possessions, or even opportunities. It exists as pure potential, waves of possibility waiting to collapse into your physical experience. And the factor that determines which possibilities collapse into your reality is not your actions, your strategies, or even your circumstances. It's your consciousness, your vibration, your quantum signature. The observer effect of wealth. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called the observer effect. When scientists observe subatomic particles, the very act of observation causes those particles to behave differently. Particles that existed as waves of possibility suddenly collapse into specific, measurable realities based on what the observer expects to find. Your consciousness works exactly the same way with wealth. When you observe your financial reality through the lens of scarcity, expecting lack, limitation, and struggle, you literally collapse the quantum field of infinite abundance into experiences that match your observation. Your expectation becomes your experience. This is why two people can start identical businesses, follow the same strategies, and work equally hard, yet achieve completely different results. Their actions might be similar, but their consciousness, their way of observing and expecting, creates entirely different quantum collapses of possibility. Maria discovered this principle accidentally. She was preparing to launch her coaching practice while still working a corporate job she despised. Every morning, she would visualize her future success. But every evening, she would return to her cubicle, feeling trapped and limited. For months, her business remained stagnant despite her hard work. The shift happened when Maria realized she was living in two different vibrational realities. During her morning visualizations, she was observing abundance and possibility, but for 8 hours a day, she was observing limitation and lack. Her quantum signature was split, sending mixed signals to the field. The breakthrough came when Maria decided to maintain her abundant observation throughout her corporate day. Instead of seeing herself as trapped, she began observing her job as temporary funding for her future success. Instead of feeling limited, she practiced feeling grateful for the steady income that allowed her to build her dream. Within 3 months of this shift in observation, opportunities began flowing. Within 6 months, she had replaced her corporate income and was living the reality she had been visualizing, the vibrational currency of success. In the quantum realm, everything is energy vibrating at specific frequencies. What we call matter, including money, cars, houses, and every physical thing you desire, is simply energy vibrating slowly enough to appear solid. What we call thoughts and emotions are the same energy vibrating at much higher frequencies. Here's the revolutionary insight. Higher vibrational energy has the power to influence and organize lower vibrational energy. This means your thoughts and emotions, when raised to sufficiently high frequencies, can literally influence and attract the physical manifestations you desire. Traditional wealth creation tries to manipulate matter with matter, using physical actions to attract physical results. This approach isn't wrong, but it's incredibly slow and effortful because you're working within the limitations of physical reality. Quantum wealth creation works with energy to influence energy, using the higher frequencies of consciousness to attract and organize the lower frequencies of material success. It's like the difference between manually moving every grain of sand on a beach versus using the power of the ocean's waves to reshape the entire shoreline effortlessly. The challenge most people face is that they vibrate at the frequency of their current circumstances rather than their desired reality. If you're struggling financially, you naturally feel the emotions of struggle, stress, worry, frustration, fear. These emotions lock you into the vibrational frequency of limitation, which can only attract more experiences that match that same frequency. To create quantum wealth, you must learn to vibrate at the frequency of abundance before it manifests physically. You must feel prosperous before you become prosperous. You must embody the energy of success before success appears in your life. The field of infinite possibility. Quantum field theory reveals that there exists an underlying field of pure potentiality from which all things emerge. This field contains every possible version of your life, including versions where you are extraordinarily wealthy, completely free, and living your highest dreams. Right now, as you read these words, there exists in the quantum field a version of you who has already achieved every financial goal you've ever set. This abundant version of yourself isn't just a fantasy. It's a real potential existing in the field of possibility, waiting for you to align with its frequency and collapse it into your physical experience. The key to accessing these abundant realities lies in understanding that the quantum field responds to coherence, the alignment between your thoughts, emotions, and energy. When your mind holds a clear intention for abundance, while your heart feels genuinely grateful and excited, and your energy radiates worthiness and expectation, you create a coherent signal that reaches into the field and draws your desired reality toward you. Think of it like tuning into a radio station. All the stations are broadcasting simultaneously, but you only hear the one you're tuned to. The quantum field is broadcasting all possibilities simultaneously, including every level of wealth and abundance you could imagine. Your consciousness is the tuning mechanism that determines which reality you experience. Most people have their consciousness tuned to the static between stations. Their thoughts might be focused on abundance, but their emotions are stuck in fear. Or their emotions might feel hopeful, but their energy carries old patterns of unworthiness. This incoherent signal creates static, unclear manifestations and frustrating near misses. The entanglement of energy and matter. One of the most fascinating discoveries in quantum physics is entanglement, the phenomenon where particles that have interacted remain connected regardless of the distance between them. When something happens to one particle, its entangled partner instantly responds, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. Your consciousness becomes entangled with whatever you focus on with intense emotion. When you consistently focus on wealth with feelings of excitement, gratitude, and certainty, you create an energetic entanglement with abundance itself. This entanglement means that opportunities, resources, and circumstances begin moving in your favor, often in ways that seem miraculous or beyond coincidence. James experienced this entanglement phenomenon when he shifted his entire approach to his struggling restaurant. Instead of focusing on the empty tables and declining revenues, he began spending time each morning in deep visualization, feeling profound gratitude for a packed restaurant, satisfied customers, and abundant profits. At first, this felt like denial of his current reality. But James understood that he wasn't denying what was. He was entangling his consciousness with what could be. Within weeks, something shifted. A food blogger happened to discover his restaurant and wrote a glowing review. A local business started ordering catering regularly. New customers began arriving, often mentioning they felt drawn to try the restaurant. The external actions James took to improve his business remained the same, but the quantum entanglement he had created with abundance was now drawing opportunities and synchronicities that his previous mindset of struggle had been repelling. The speed of quantum manifestation. In the physical world, everything happens according to linear time. You plant a seed, wait for it to grow, and eventually harvest the fruit. But in the quantum realm, time doesn't work the same way. Information, energy, and influence can move instantaneously across any distance. This means that the moment you truly shift your vibration to abundance, the moment you genuinely embody the feeling and energy of prosperity, you instantly transmit that signal to the quantum field. The response doesn't have to wait for linear time to unfold. Opportunities can appear immediately. Resources can show up from unexpected sources. Solutions to financial challenges can emerge, seemingly out of nowhere. The delay between your vibrational shift and physical manifestation depends on several factors: the strength and consistency of your new vibration, the depth of your old programming that needs to be overridden, and your openness to receiving in forms you might not have expected. Some manifestations happen within days or weeks. Others take months as your new vibration gradually dissolves old patterns and builds new neural pathways. But here's what's consistent. The moment you authentically embody abundance at the quantum level, the process of manifestation begins immediately, even if you can't yet see it physically. Living from the future. Perhaps the most powerful application of quantum physics to wealth creation is learning to live from your future abundant self rather than your current circumstances. In quantum terms, your future self already exists as a potential in the field. This version of you has already solved your current financial challenges, already achieved your goals, already embodied the prosperity you desire. When you connect with this future self, not as fantasy, but as quantum reality, you begin to think, feel, and act from that level of consciousness. You make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. You take actions from confidence rather than desperation. You hold energy of prosperity rather than limitation. This isn't positive thinking or wishful dreaming. This is quantum physics applied to consciousness. You are literally tuning your awareness to a version of yourself that exists in the field of possibility and allowing that reality to influence your current experience. The more consistently you live from this future abundant self, the more your external reality begins to reshape itself to match. Your quantum signature shifts from the frequency of struggling to the frequency of thriving, and the field responds by collapsing different possibilities into your experience. You are not trying to become abundant. At the quantum level, you already are abundant. You are simply learning to tune into that frequency consistently enough for it to manifest in your physical reality. Your wealth is not coming to you from the outside. It is emerging from within you as you align with the abundant quantum signature that has always been available. The question is not whether you can create wealth. The question is whether you're ready to embody the quantum frequency of abundance and allow your external reality to reflect the infinite prosperity that already exists in the field of all possibilities. Chapter 3. Reprogramming the Subconscious Financial Mind. Your subconscious mind is like a faithful servant that has been following orders from a manual written when you were 5 years old. It's time to give it new instructions. Have you ever wondered why you can know exactly what you should do to improve your finances, feel motivated to take action, yet somehow find yourself sabotaging your own efforts? Why you can read every wealth-building book, attend seminars, and create perfect plans, only to watch them crumble when you try to implement them? The answer lies in the most powerful force in your psychological makeup: your subconscious mind. While your conscious mind sets goals and makes plans, your subconscious mind runs the show. And for most people, that subconscious programming around money was written during childhood by scared adults who were themselves operating from programs of limitation and fear. Lisa discovered this the hard way. She was a successful marketing executive who understood strategy, planning, and execution. She had read dozens of books on wealth building and had created what appeared to be a foolproof plan for financial independence. She would start each month with enthusiasm, tracking expenses, making investments, building her side business. But by the third week, something would always derail her efforts. Sometimes it was an emergency expense that ate up her investment money. Sometimes she would suddenly feel compelled to buy something she didn't need. Other times, she would simply stop following through on her business activities for reasons she couldn't understand. Each failure reinforced her growing belief that financial success was somehow not meant for her. The breakthrough came when Lisa learned to identify the subconscious programs running beneath her conscious awareness. Through careful observation, she discovered that every time she got close to a financial breakthrough, she would hear her mother's voice in her head saying, "Don't get too big for your britches." This was followed by a flood of guilt about wanting more than her family had growing up, and fear that success would somehow separate her from the people she loved. These weren't just thoughts. They were commands embedded in her subconscious operating system, automatically triggering behaviors designed to keep her financially safe within the boundaries her childhood mind had established. Until she recognized and reprogrammed these deep patterns, no amount of conscious effort could create lasting change. The architecture of financial programming. Your subconscious mind learned about money the same way it learned language. Through repetition, emotion, and environmental absorption. Between birth and age 7, your brain was primarily operating in theta waves, a highly suggestible state similar to hypnosis. During this critical period, every money-related experience, conversation, and emotional exchange was downloaded directly into your subconscious as fundamental truth about how the financial world works. If your parents argued about money, your subconscious learned that money creates conflict. If there was stress around paying bills, you absorbed the pattern that money brings anxiety. If you heard phrases like, "money doesn't buy happiness," or "rich people are selfish," these became core beliefs in your financial operating system. But the programming went deeper than just words. Your subconscious also downloaded the emotional signatures associated with money in your environment. The feeling of tension when bills arrived, the energy of excitement or stress around payday, the emotional atmosphere during conversations about purchases, investments, or financial planning. These emotional patterns became part of your autonomic nervous system responses around money. This is why you might feel anxious when looking at your bank balance, even when it's healthy, or why you might feel guilty when spending money on yourself, even when it's completely justified. These aren't rational responses. They're conditioned reflexes installed during your most impressionable years. The challenge is that your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between past and present. Those 5-year-old interpretations of money are still running your financial life today. Your adult conscious mind might understand that money is simply a tool for exchange, but your subconscious is still operating from the emotional interpretations of a child who didn't have the cognitive capacity to understand complex financial realities. Identifying your financial programming. The first step in reprogramming your financial subconscious is becoming aware of the specific programs currently running. This requires developing what I call observer consciousness, the ability to step back and watch your own mental and emotional processes without judgment. Start by paying attention to your automatic thoughts and feelings around money. When you check your bank account, what's the first emotion that arises? When you think about making more money, what concerns or fears surface? When you consider making a significant purchase or investment, what internal dialogue begins? These immediate, unconscious responses are direct windows into your programming. They happen so quickly and feel so natural that most people never question them. But each automatic response is evidence of a deeper program that was installed years or decades ago. Robert began this awareness process and was shocked by what he discovered. Every time he thought about raising his prices as a consultant, he would immediately feel selfish and hear his father's voice saying, "Don't be greedy." When he considered investing in marketing for his business, he would feel frivolous and remember his mother's warnings about throwing money away. These weren't just memories. They were active programs controlling his financial decisions in real time. His father's voice had been installed as his internal financial advisor, and his mother's fears had become his investment strategy. No wonder his conscious goals kept being undermined by his subconscious programming. The emotional archaeology of money. To truly reprogram your financial subconscious, you must go beyond identifying surface thoughts and dig into the emotional foundations beneath them. This process is like archaeological excavation. You're carefully uncovering layers of emotional experiences that shaped your money consciousness. Each limiting belief about money is connected to specific emotional experiences from your past. The belief, "I don't deserve wealth," might be connected to shame you felt as a child when your family couldn't afford something your friends had. The pattern of self-sabotage might be linked to guilt about having more than a struggling parent or sibling. These emotional connections give your financial programming its power. You can't simply think your way out of these patterns because they're not based in logic. They're based in the emotional experiences of your developing nervous system. Jennifer discovered this when she traced her pattern of compulsive spending back to its emotional roots. Whenever she felt stressed or lonely, she would go shopping, often buying things she didn't need with money she should have been saving. This behavior made no logical sense to her successful, educated adult mind. But when she explored the emotional archaeology beneath this pattern, she remembered being 7 years old and feeling unloved after her parents' divorce. Her grandmother had taken her shopping and bought her a new dress, and for that afternoon, Jennifer felt special and cared for. Her subconscious mind had connected shopping with receiving love and comfort. For 30 years, whenever Jennifer felt unloved or stressed, her subconscious would automatically trigger the shopping program, seeking that same emotional relief she had experienced as a child. Until she understood this connection, she couldn't reprogram the behavior because she was trying to solve an emotional problem with logical solutions. The neuroscience of belief change. Recent discoveries in neuroscience reveal that your beliefs are literally wired into your brain as neural networks. Every time you think a thought, your brain creates connections between neurons. Think the same thought repeatedly, and those connections become stronger, eventually forming superhighways of automatic thinking. Your current financial beliefs exist as established neural pathways in your brain. The belief, money is hard to come by has been reinforced thousands of times, creating a strong neural network that automatically fires whenever money-related situations arise. This network operates faster than conscious thought, influencing your perceptions, decisions, and actions before your rational mind even becomes aware of what's happening. But here's the revolutionary insight. Your brain's neuroplasticity means you can create new neural pathways at any age. Every time you consciously choose a new thought about money, you begin building new neural connections. Choose that new thought repeatedly while in an elevated emotional state, and you start creating new superhighways that can eventually become stronger than the old limiting patterns. The key is understanding that you must create new neural networks before you can dissolve old ones. You can't simply stop thinking limiting thoughts about money. You must give your brain new, more empowering thoughts to think instead. And you must reinforce these new thoughts with elevated emotions to accelerate the rewiring process. This is why affirmations often fail. Simply repeating, "I am wealthy," while feeling broke, creates internal conflict that actually strengthens the neural pathways of limitation. But when you combine new thoughts with genuine feelings of abundance, gratitude, and excitement, you create coherent signals that build powerful new neural networks aligned with prosperity. Installing new financial programming. The process of installing new financial programming requires accessing the same brainwave states where your original programming was installed. This means learning to shift your consciousness from the beta waves of normal waking awareness into the alpha and theta states, where your subconscious mind becomes most receptive to new information. These meditative states naturally occur twice daily, in the moments just before you fall asleep and just as you're waking up. During these twilight periods, your conscious mind relaxes its control and your subconscious becomes highly suggestible, just as it was during your childhood programming years. This is the optimal time to install new financial beliefs and emotional patterns. Instead of falling asleep to random thoughts or anxiety about tomorrow's challenges, you can use these precious moments to program abundance, worthiness, and prosperity into your subconscious mind. The process requires more than just positive thinking. You must create new thoughts, new feelings, and new images that represent your desired financial reality. Your subconscious learns through repetition, emotion, and vivid imagery. When you consistently expose it to new patterns during these receptive states, it gradually accepts these new programs as truth and begins implementing them automatically in your daily life. Marcus transformed his entire financial reality using this approach. Every night as he fell asleep, he would visualize himself checking a bank account with abundant funds, feeling the genuine excitement and gratitude of financial freedom. He would imagine making investment decisions from confidence rather than fear, and experience the emotional signature of prosperity flowing through his life. During his morning meditation, he would reinforce these programs by feeling into his future successful self, allowing that version of himself to influence his thoughts, emotions, and energy for the day ahead. Within months, his external financial reality began shifting to match his new internal programming. The integration process, reprogramming your financial subconscious, is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of integration. As you install new programs, old patterns will sometimes resurface, especially during times of stress or challenge. This is normal and part of the transformation process. The key is to recognize these moments as opportunities to strengthen your new programming, rather than evidence that the process isn't working. Each time you consciously choose an abundant thought over a limiting one, or respond to financial stress with confidence rather than fear, you're laying down new neural pathways and weakening old ones. Remember, your current financial programming took years to install and has been reinforced thousands of times. Give your new programming time to establish itself. Be patient with the process while maintaining consistency with your reprogramming practices. Your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, but it's also completely loyal. It will faithfully execute whatever programs you install, whether they support your success or sabotage it. By taking conscious control of your financial programming, you're reclaiming authority over the most powerful force in your psychological makeup. The old programs served their purpose. They kept you safe within the familiar boundaries of your childhood understanding. But now, you're ready for new programming that supports expansion, abundance, and the full expression of your financial potential. Your subconscious is waiting for your new instructions. It's time to give it a manual worthy of the prosperous future you're ready to create. Chapter 4. The Alchemy of Emotions. Your emotions are not obstacles to overcome on the path to wealth. They are the very fuel that powers your financial transformation. Learn to transmute fear into faith and scarcity into abundance. What if the very emotions you've been trying to avoid, the fear, the anxiety, the frustration around money, are actually the raw materials for your greatest financial breakthrough? What if learning to transform these challenging emotions into elevated states is the missing key to unlocking abundance in your life? Most people approach their financial emotions like unwanted visitors, trying to suppress them, ignore them, or think their way out of them. But this approach is like trying to drive a car while pressing the brake and accelerator simultaneously. You create internal conflict that wastes enormous energy while preventing you from moving forward. Elena understood this struggle intimately. As a talented architect, she had the skills to build a thriving practice, but every time she thought about marketing herself or raising her fees, waves of anxiety would flood her system. She would feel her heart racing, her stomach tightening, and her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Instead of moving forward, she would retreat into safe, familiar patterns that kept her income well below her potential. For years, Elena tried to overcome these emotions through willpower and positive thinking. She would tell herself she was being irrational, that she had nothing to fear. But the emotions kept returning, often stronger than before. She was fighting against her own energy system instead of learning to work with it. The transformation began when Elena discovered that emotions are not problems to be solved. They are energy in motion that can be consciously directed and transformed. Instead of viewing her financial fears as evidence of weakness or limitation, she learned to see them as powerful energy that had simply been misaligned. The same emotional intensity that created anxiety could be alchemically transformed into excitement, confidence, and magnetic attraction. Understanding the emotional spectrum, every emotion you experience around money exists on a spectrum of energy vibration. Fear, anxiety, and worry vibrate at lower frequencies that literally contract your energy field and repel opportunities. Joy, excitement, and gratitude vibrate at higher frequencies that expand your energy and attract abundance. But here's what most people don't understand. The distance between fear and excitement, between anxiety and anticipation, is much smaller than the distance between apathy and passion. This means that intense negative emotions around money are actually closer to abundance than emotional numbness or disconnection. When you feel strong fear about your financial future, you're experiencing powerful energy that is simply flowing in a contractive direction. That same energy can be redirected into expansive emotions like excitement about possibilities, anticipation of success, or passion for your financial goals. The intensity remains the same, only the direction changes. Think of emotions as water flowing through your energy system. Fear is like water flowing downhill, carving channels of limitation and scarcity. But water flowing uphill creates entirely different landscapes, fertile valleys of possibility and abundance. The water is the same. The direction transforms everything. This understanding revolutionizes how you approach challenging emotions around money. Instead of seeing anxiety as evidence that you're not ready for wealth, you can recognize it as confirmation that you have powerful energy available for transformation. Instead of viewing fear as a stop sign, you can see it as a yield sign, an invitation to consciously redirect that energy toward your desired outcomes. The physiology of financial emotions. Your emotions around money aren't just mental experiences. They create specific physiological states that either support or sabotage your financial success. When you feel fear, worry, or stress about money, your nervous system activates the ancient survival response designed to help you escape from physical danger. Your heart rate increases, stress hormones flood your system, your breathing becomes shallow, and your brain shifts into primitive survival mode. In this state, you literally cannot access the creative, strategic, intuitive parts of your mind that are essential for creating wealth. You become reactive instead of responsive, defensive instead of creative, contracted instead of expansive. Most people spend the majority of their financial lives in some version of this survival state. They check their bank account with anxiety, think about the future with worry, and approach money decisions from fear. This chronic stress creates a physiological environment that makes wealth creation nearly impossible, because your body and brain are optimized for survival, not thriving. But when you learn to consciously shift into elevated emotional states around money, gratitude, excitement, confidence, passion, your physiology completely transforms. Your heart rhythm becomes coherent, sending signals to your brain that activate higher cognitive functions. Stress hormones are replaced by chemicals that enhance creativity, intuition, and strategic thinking. In these elevated states, you naturally make better financial decisions. You see opportunities that were invisible during stress. You communicate with confidence that attracts collaboration and support. You take inspired action that leads to unexpected results. Your entire energy field becomes magnetic to abundance because your physiology is aligned with thriving rather than surviving. Transmuting fear into faith, the most powerful emotional alchemy, occurs when you learn to transform fear into faith, not as a mental concept, but as a lived energetic experience. Fear and faith are both intense emotions focused on the future, but they create completely different realities based on their vibrational frequency. Fear imagines negative futures and feels them as if they were already happening. Faith imagines positive futures and feels them as if they were already happening. Both emotions harness the power of imagination and feeling, but they direct that power in opposite directions. The key to emotional alchemy is recognizing that you have a choice about which future you energize with your emotions. When you feel fear about your financial future, you're using your powerful imagination and emotional energy to create and reinforce the very outcomes you don't want. but you can consciously redirect that same energy towards the outcomes you do want. You can take the intensity you feel when imagining financial failure and apply it to imagining financial success. You can feel as passionate about your potential abundance as you currently feel anxious about potential lack. Marcus experienced this transformation during a particularly challenging financial period. His business was struggling, and every morning he would wake up feeling terrified about losing everything. This fear was consuming his energy and clouding his judgment, making it even harder to find solutions. The shift occurred when Marcus realized he was spending hours each day feeling intensely emotional about negative possibilities that hadn't happened and might never happen. He decided to invest that same emotional energy in positive possibilities instead. Instead of feeling terrified about failure, he began feeling excited about potential breakthroughs. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, he started feeling grateful for best-case possibilities. This wasn't denial or positive thinking. It was conscious redirection of powerful emotional energy. Within weeks, Marcus found himself making different decisions, taking different actions, and attracting different opportunities. His external circumstances took time to shift, but his internal transformation was immediate and profound. The magnetic field of gratitude. Among all the emotions available for financial alchemy, gratitude holds a unique position. Gratitude is perhaps the fastest way to shift your vibration from scarcity to abundance, because it immediately connects you with what you already have, rather than what you lack. But the gratitude that creates financial transformation goes beyond simply appreciating your current blessings. It involves feeling genuine thankfulness for abundance that hasn't yet manifested physically, gratitude for opportunities that are coming, appreciation for wealth that is on its way, thankfulness for the financial freedom you are becoming. This future-focused gratitude creates a powerful magnetic field that draws your desired reality toward you. When you feel genuinely grateful for the abundance you're creating, you vibrate at the same frequency as that abundance, like attracts like at the quantum level. So your grateful energy literally pulls abundant experiences into your reality. The key is making this gratitude feel authentic rather than forced. You cannot fake the vibrational frequency of true gratitude. Your energy field will reflect whatever you genuinely feel. This is why gratitude practices often fail when they're approached as mental exercises rather than emotional experiences. To cultivate authentic gratitude for your emerging abundance, you must connect with the feeling of already having what you desire. You must imagine so vividly and feel so completely the experience of financial freedom that your body responds as if it were already your reality. In those moments of genuine feeling, you create the magnetic attraction that begins drawing that reality toward you, transforming envy into inspiration. One of the most challenging emotions on the path to wealth is envy, the painful feeling that arises when others have what you want. Most people try to suppress envy or feel guilty about experiencing it, but this emotion actually contains powerful information about your desires and can be transformed into rocket fuel for your own success. Envy is misdirected desire. When you feel envious of someone's wealth, success, or opportunities, you're experiencing powerful wanting energy that has become contaminated with the belief that their abundance somehow diminishes your possibilities. But in a quantum universe of infinite potential, another person's success actually proves that what you want is possible and available. The alchemical process involves separating the pure desire from the contaminating beliefs. When you see someone living the financial reality you want, Instead of feeling diminished by their success, you can use their achievement as evidence that such success is possible for you too. Their abundance becomes inspiration rather than intimidation. Sarah transformed her relationship with successful people through this process. Instead of feeling envious when she met wealthy individuals, she began feeling excited because their success proved that the financial reality she desired was achievable. She started studying successful people not from resentment, but from curiosity, learning from their mindsets, strategies, and energy patterns. This shift changed everything about how Sarah showed up in the world. Instead of contracting around successful people, she expanded. Instead of feeling threatened by their achievements, she felt inspired by the possibilities they represented. This new energy made her naturally magnetic to mentorship, partnerships, and opportunities that had been unavailable when she vibrated from envy and limitation. The emotional signature of abundance. As you practice emotional alchemy, you begin to develop what I call an emotional signature of abundance, a consistent feeling tone that becomes your natural state around money and success. This signature is not forced positivity or fake optimism, but a genuine embodied feeling of prosperity, worthiness, and expectation. People with authentic wealth consciousness carry this signature naturally. They feel comfortable around money, confident about their value, and expectant about opportunities. This emotional signature broadcasts constantly from their energy field, influencing every interaction and attracting experiences that match their abundant vibration. You can consciously cultivate this signature through consistent emotional practice. Each time you shift from fear to faith, from worry to excitement, from envy to inspiration, you strengthen your abundant emotional signature. Each time you feel genuine gratitude for emerging prosperity, you deepen your alignment with wealth consciousness. Over time, abundance becomes your emotional home base, the feeling you naturally return to when thinking about money, opportunities, and your financial future. This signature becomes so strong that temporary challenges cannot shake your fundamental knowing that abundance is your natural state. Your emotions are not obstacles between you and wealth. They are the bridge that carries you from limitation to abundance. Every challenging feeling around money is an opportunity to practice emotional alchemy, transforming the raw energy of fear into the refined power of faith. The universe responds not to your words or even your thoughts, but to your emotional signature, the authentic feeling you carry about yourself and your possibilities. As you master the alchemy of emotions, you create an energetic environment where abundance is not just possible, but inevitable. Your feelings are the language your subconscious mind speaks, and the frequency your energy field broadcasts. Master your emotions around money, and you master the very mechanism through which abundance flows into your life. Chapter 5. The State of Being Abundant. Abundance is not something you achieve. It is something you embody. When you become abundant in your very being, your external world has no choice but to reflect that inner reality. There's a profound difference between wanting abundance and being abundant. Most people spend their entire lives chasing wealth from a state of lack, trying to fill an inner emptiness with outer achievements. But true prosperity flows from an entirely different source, a state of being so complete, so whole, so fundamentally abundant that external wealth becomes a natural expression rather than a desperate pursuit. This distinction changed everything for Michael, a financial advisor who understood money intellectually but struggled with his own financial reality. Despite his expertise in helping others build wealth, his personal finances remained mediocre. He was caught in the paradox of teaching abundance while living from scarcity. The breakthrough came when Michael realized he was approaching wealth as something outside himself that he needed to acquire, manipulate, or deserve. He was operating from the assumption that he was naturally lacking and needed to prove his worthiness through action and achievement. This fundamental orientation kept him in a perpetual state of chasing. No matter how much knowledge he gained or effort he applied, everything shifted when Michael learned to flip this entire paradigm. Instead of trying to become wealthy, he began practicing being wealthy. Instead of working toward abundance, he started embodying abundance. Instead of feeling that he needed to earn prosperity, he began recognizing that prosperity was his natural state, that had simply been obscured by learned limitations. This wasn't positive thinking or wishful fantasy. It was a recognition of a deeper truth about the nature of consciousness and reality. At your core, before any programming about limitation was installed, you existed as pure potential, unlimited, abundant, and inherently whole. The state of being abundant is not something you create. It's something you remember and return to. Beyond the need for more. The most profound aspect of abundant being is transcending the constant need for more. This doesn't mean becoming passive or losing ambition. It means operating from fullness rather than emptiness, from appreciation rather than desperation, from overflow rather than lack. When you truly embody abundance, you create and receive, not because you need to, but because it's your natural expression. Like a river that flows because that's its nature, not because it lacks water. You generate prosperity because abundance is what you are, not what you're trying to become. This state of being is characterized by a fundamental feeling of enough. Not enough in a limiting sense that stops growth, but enough in the sense of deep satisfaction and completeness that allows you to create from joy rather than need. When you feel abundant at your core, every external gain becomes a celebration rather than a salvation. Patricia discovered this principle during a meditation retreat, where she was asked to imagine how she would feel if she already had everything she desired financially. As she dropped into this visualization, something unexpected happened. Instead of feeling excited about all the things she could buy or do, she felt profound peace and contentment. In that moment, Patricia realized she had been seeking external wealth to fill an internal sense of emptiness and inadequacy. But when she imagined already having everything, the emptiness disappeared, replaced by a sense of wholeness that needed nothing from the outside world to be complete. This realization transformed her approach to wealth creation. Instead of being driven by the anxiety of not having enough, she began creating from the joy of having more than enough to share. Her business grew rapidly because her energy had shifted from desperate need to generous overflow. Clients were naturally drawn to her abundant presence rather than repelled by hidden desperation. The energetics of wholeness. When you operate from a state of abundant being, your entire energy field changes. Instead of radiating need, lack, or hunger, you emanate satisfaction, completeness, and plenty. This energetic shift is immediately perceptible to others, even if they can't consciously identify what they're sensing. Think about how different it feels to be around someone who desperately needs something from you versus someone who is genuinely content and simply enjoys your company. The desperate person creates an energetic drain that makes you want to maintain distance. The content person creates an energetic field that feels nourishing and attractive. The same principle applies to your relationship with money and opportunities. When you approach financial interactions from needing the sale, needing the job, needing the investment return, you unconsciously push away the very things you're trying to attract. Your energy of need creates resistance in others because it feels demanding and extractive. But when you approach financial opportunities from a state of abundant being, genuinely feeling that you already have what you need and are simply exploring pleasant possibilities, your energy becomes magnetic. People want to do business with you because your presence feels expansive rather than contractive, giving rather than taking. This is why some people seem to attract opportunities effortlessly while others struggle despite working harder. The difference isn't in their external actions, but in their internal state of being. Those who embody abundance naturally draw abundance because their energy field is aligned with the frequency they're seeking to experience. Living from your future self. One of the most powerful practices for embodying abundant being is learning to live from your future self, the version of you that has already achieved the financial reality you desire. This isn't visualization or imagination. It's a genuine shift in identity and state of being. Your future abundant self exists right now as a potential in the quantum field. This version of you thinks differently, feels differently, and carries different energy than your current self. When you connect with this future identity and begin operating from that level of consciousness, you literally become a different person, one whose natural state is abundance rather than limitation. The key is to embody the being state of your future self, not just the having state. Don't focus on what that version of you owns or achieves. Focus on how that version of you feels, thinks, and moves through the world. How does your abundantly successful self approach decisions? What energy do they carry into interactions? How do they feel about money, opportunities, and their own worthiness? James practiced this by spending time each morning connecting with his financially free future self. Instead of focusing on the millions in the bank account, he focused on the feeling of complete financial freedom, the peace, the confidence, the sense of unlimited possibilities. He would ask himself, how would my future self handle this situation? What decision would my abundant self make? How would my prosperous self feel right now? As James consistently operated from this future identity, remarkable changes began occurring. His decision-making improved because he was choosing from abundance rather than scarcity. His communication became more confident because he was speaking from worthiness rather than need. His actions became more strategic because he was thinking long-term rather than survival-focused. Within a year, James's external circumstances had shifted dramatically to match his new internal state of being. But the transformation had begun the moment he started embodying abundance rather than chasing it. The paradox of detachment. Embodying abundant being requires mastering one of the most counterintuitive principles in manifestation: detachment from outcomes. This doesn't mean not caring about results or becoming passive about your goals. It means holding your desires lightly enough that you don't energetically squeeze the life out of them. When you desperately need something to happen, you create energetic resistance that actually prevents it from manifesting. Your need creates a vibrational frequency of lack that repels the very abundance you're trying to attract. But when you want something while simultaneously being okay if it doesn't happen exactly as expected, you create space for miracles to occur. This detached state is not indifference, it's ultimate confidence. You care deeply about your vision while trusting completely in your ability to create abundance in infinite ways. You become like water, flowing around obstacles rather than fighting them, always finding the path to your destination. The practice involves holding two seemingly contradictory truths simultaneously. You have specific desires that matter deeply to you, and you are already complete and whole, regardless of whether those desires manifest. This paradox dissolves when you recognize that your desires are not coming from lack, but from the natural expansion of an already abundant consciousness. Maria mastered this principle during a challenging period when her business was struggling. Instead of gripping tighter to her failing strategies, she practiced complete surrender while maintaining clear intention. She said to the universe, "I deeply desire financial success, and I'm completely open to receiving it in ways I haven't yet imagined. I trust that my highest good is unfolding, whether it looks like what I expect or something even better." This surrender created space for unexpected solutions to emerge. Within months, opportunities appeared that she never could have planned or forced. Her business not only recovered but transformed into something more aligned with her authentic self and far more profitable than her original vision. The abundant response to challenge. The true test of abundant being is not how you feel when everything is going well, but how you respond to financial challenges and setbacks. Someone who genuinely embodies abundance doesn't lose their center when external circumstances become difficult. They maintain their inner state of plenty, even when outer appearances suggest scarcity. This doesn't mean being naive about real challenges or pretending problems don't exist. It means responding to difficulties from your abundant center rather than from fear, panic, or survival programming. You acknowledge what is while maintaining connection to what's possible. When abundant beings face financial challenges, they ask different questions. What is this situation teaching me? How can I grow from this experience? What opportunities might be hidden in this apparent setback? They treat challenges as temporary experiences rather than permanent realities, as curriculum rather than punishment. This response isn't just positive thinking. It's a completely different relationship with reality itself. Abundant beings understand that their external circumstances are always fluctuating, but their internal state of abundance is constant. They know that temporary financial difficulties cannot diminish their fundamental wealth of consciousness, abundance as service. Perhaps the highest expression of abundant being is recognizing that your prosperity serves something greater than personal gain. When you truly embody abundance, you naturally begin to see your financial success as a means of contributing to the world rather than just accumulating for yourself. This shift from self-serving to life-serving completely transforms the energy of your wealth creation. Instead of trying to extract value from the world, you focus on how to add value to the world. Instead of asking, "What can I get?" you ask, "What can I give?" This generous orientation creates exponential returns because you align with the fundamental nature of abundance, which is always giving and flowing. True abundance consciousness recognizes that the universe operates on principles of circulation and flow. Money, like energy, is meant to move. When you hold it too tightly or hoard it from fear, you interrupt the natural flow that would bring you even more. But when you allow abundance to flow through you, receiving generously and giving generously, you become a clear channel for infinite prosperity. Your abundant being is not a personal achievement. It's a gift to everyone whose life you touch. When you embody true abundance, you give others permission to do the same. You become living proof that prosperity is possible, available, and natural. Your very presence becomes a transmission of abundance consciousness that elevates everyone around you. The state of being abundant is your birthright, not your achievement. It's your natural condition, not your earned reward. You don't have to become abundant. You simply have to remember and embody the abundant nature that has been yours all along. From this state of being, all external abundance flows as naturally as rivers flow to the sea. Chapter 6. Quantum Visualization of Prosperity. Your imagination is not separate from reality. It is the laboratory where you construct the blueprint for your future experiences. Master the art of visualization, and you master the very mechanism through which consciousness creates form. What if your ability to visualize is far more powerful than you've ever imagined? What if the pictures you create in your mind aren't just daydreams or wishful thinking, but actual blueprints that your consciousness uses to construct your future reality? Modern neuroscience reveals something extraordinary. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you visualize with sufficient detail and emotional intensity, your nervous system responds as if the experience is actually happening. Neural pathways are created, memories are formed, and your body chemistry changes to match the imagined reality. This discovery revolutionizes how we understand visualization. It's not just a motivational tool or a way to clarify goals. It's a precise technology for rewiring your consciousness and programming your quantum field to attract specific experiences. David learned this lesson in the most unexpected way. As a struggling musician, he had tried traditional visualization techniques for years with minimal results. He would imagine himself performing on stage, signing record deals, and living a successful artist's life. But nothing seemed to change in his external reality. The breakthrough came when David learned the difference between wishful visualization and quantum visualization. His previous attempts had been more like watching movies about someone else's success, entertaining but disconnected from his actual experience. True quantum visualization requires you to step into the experience so completely that your consciousness literally inhabits the reality you're creating. The first time David practiced quantum visualization properly, he didn't just see himself succeeding, he became his successful self. He felt the confidence flowing through his body, experienced the satisfaction of artistic achievement, and embodied the energy of someone whose music touched thousands of lives. His nervous system recorded this as a real experience, creating new neural pathways and shifting his entire vibrational signature. Within weeks, opportunities began appearing that matched his new internal reality. A producer heard his demo at exactly the right moment. Collaboration opportunities emerged from unexpected sources. His performances improved dramatically because he was now embodying the confidence he had experienced in his quantum visualizations. The external world was simply catching up to the internal reality he had already created. The science of mental rehearsal. Peak performers in every field have discovered the power of mental rehearsal. Olympic athletes visualize their perfect performances hundreds of times before competition. Surgeons mentally rehearse complex procedures before entering the operating room. Fighter pilots practice emergency scenarios in flight simulators that feel completely real. These applications work because the subconscious mind treats vivid visualization as actual experience. When you repeatedly visualize yourself succeeding in specific scenarios, you're literally training your nervous system to perform at that level. Your brain develops the neural pathways necessary to execute the visualized actions with precision and confidence. Financial success operates according to the same principles. When you repeatedly visualize yourself making confident investment decisions, negotiating successful deals, or managing abundant resources, you train your consciousness to operate at that level of sophistication. Your nervous system develops familiarity with prosperity, making wealth feel natural rather than foreign. The key is understanding that quantum visualization goes far beyond simple mental pictures. It involves engaging all your senses, emotions, and bodily sensations to create an experience so real that your consciousness accepts it as memory rather than imagination. Elena discovered this when she began visualizing her ideal financial reality with scientific precision. Instead of vague images of being wealthy, she created specific, multi-sensory scenarios. She visualized checking her investment portfolio and feeling genuine excitement about the growth. She imagined the physical sensation of signing contracts for lucrative projects, the sound of her voice confidently negotiating terms, even the texture of quality business cards in her hands. But most importantly, Elena focused on the internal experience, the confidence, peace, and sense of capability she would feel as someone who naturally attracted prosperity. She trained her nervous system to recognize these states as familiar, making it natural for her to embody them in real-world situations. Programming your quantum field. At the quantum level, your visualizations are not just mental exercises. They are energetic transmissions that program the field of possibilities around you. When you visualize with sufficient clarity and emotional intensity, you broadcast a specific vibrational signature that begins attracting experiences that match that frequency. This process works because consciousness and matter are fundamentally the same energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your visualizations exist as high-frequency energy patterns that influence the lower-frequency energy we call physical reality. The more consistently you broadcast a particular visualization, the more you organize the quantum field to support that specific manifestation. The secret lies in understanding that the field responds to coherence, the alignment between your thoughts, emotions, and energy. Random or half-hearted visualizations create weak signals that produce inconsistent results. But when your mind holds clear images while your heart feels genuine excitement and your energy radiates expectation, you create a coherent transmission that the field cannot ignore. This is why visualization techniques often fail for people who approach them mechanically. They might create detailed mental pictures, but if those pictures aren't supported by authentic emotion and energetic alignment, the signal remains weak and produces minimal results. Marcus transformed his struggling consulting business by learning to create coherent visualizations. Instead of forcing himself through visualization exercises he didn't really believe in, he began connecting with the genuine excitement he felt about helping clients transform their businesses. He visualized not just successful outcomes, but the feeling of deep satisfaction that came from making a real difference in people's lives. This authentic emotional connection gave his visualizations tremendous power. When he imagined presenting to ideal clients, he felt genuine enthusiasm about the value he could provide. When he visualized receiving payment for his services, he felt worthy and grateful rather than desperate or guilty. This coherent signal attracted clients who resonated with his authentic energy and valued his contributions appropriately. The architecture of abundant visualizations. Creating powerful visualizations for financial transformation requires understanding the specific elements that make mental imagery effective. Random pictures in your mind won't create lasting change. You need to construct your visualizations with the precision of an architect designing a building. First, your visualizations must be specific rather than general. Instead of vague images of being rich, create detailed scenarios of specific financial experiences. Visualize the exact amount in your bank account, the specific property you're purchasing, or the particular business deal you're negotiating. Specificity gives your subconscious mind clear targets to work toward. Second, engage all your senses. See the colors and textures in your visualization. Hear the sounds of your successful environment. Feel the physical sensations of confidence and prosperity flowing through your body. Smell the leather of your ideal car, or taste the celebration dinner after closing a major deal. Multi-sensory visualization creates stronger neural pathways and more convincing experiences for your subconscious. Third, focus on the internal experience as much as the external details. How do you feel in your chest when you're financially free? What kind of thoughts naturally occur to someone at your desired level of prosperity? How does your body move differently when you're confident about money? These internal elements are often more powerful than external imagery because they directly program your state of being. Fourth, visualize from the first person, not third person. Don't watch yourself succeeding like you're observing someone else's movie. Step into the experience and see through your own successful eyes. Feel what it's like to be in that reality, rather than to watch it from the outside. The emotional catalyst. Perhaps the most critical element in quantum visualization is emotion. Your feelings are the energy that transforms mental images from fantasy into reality. Without authentic emotion, visualization remains intellectual exercise rather than consciousness programming. The emotions you feel during visualization must match the emotions you would naturally experience if the scenario were actually happening. If you're visualizing financial abundance, but feeling desperate or needy while doing it, you're programming scarcity rather than prosperity. The emotional signature attached to your visualization is what gets recorded in your subconscious and broadcast to the quantum field. This is why many people struggle with visualization. They try to force emotions they don't authentically feel. You cannot fake the vibrational frequency of genuine excitement or gratitude. Your energy field reflects your real emotional state, regardless of what emotions you think you should be feeling. The solution is to start with whatever authentic positive emotion you can access, even if it's small. Perhaps you can genuinely feel curiosity about your financial potential or mild appreciation for the opportunities already in your life. Build your visualizations around these authentic feelings, allowing them to gradually expand and intensify as your practice develops. Jennifer discovered this principle when she stopped trying to feel grateful for millions and started with genuine appreciation for the $20 in her wallet. She visualized that $20 multiplying, feeling real excitement about how that small amount could grow through wise choices. As her authentic appreciation for modest amounts expanded, she naturally began feeling genuine excitement about larger possibilities, living in the visualization. The most advanced practitioners of quantum visualization don't just practice their technique for a few minutes over each day. They learn to live in their visualizations. They maintain connection to their prosperous future self throughout their daily activities, making decisions and taking actions from that elevated state of consciousness. This doesn't mean living in fantasy or denying current reality. It means maintaining dual awareness, fully present to your current circumstances while simultaneously connected to your emerging reality. You handle today's challenges from tomorrow's consciousness, bringing future wisdom into present situations. When you truly master this skill, visualization becomes less about specific practice sessions and more about an ongoing state of consciousness. You naturally think, feel, and act from your abundant future self because that identity has become more real to you than your current limitations. This is the ultimate goal of quantum visualization, not just to imagine a better future, but to become someone for whom that future is the natural and inevitable result of who you are. Your visualizations train your consciousness to inhabit prosperity so completely that your external reality has no choice but to reflect that internal transformation. Your imagination is not escape from reality. It is the creative force through which consciousness shapes reality. Every visualization is a prayer. Every mental image is a blueprint. Every imagined experience is a step toward manifestation. Master the art of quantum visualization, and you master the very mechanism through which your consciousness creates the experiences of your life. The abundant future you visualize is not a fantasy. It is prophecy. It is your consciousness reaching forward in time to construct the reality you are becoming. Step into that future now through the power of your imagination and watch as your external world reshapes itself to match the internal reality you have already created. Chapter 7. The Identity of the Prosperous. You will never rise higher than your identity allows. Transform who you believe yourself to be, and every external circumstance must reorganize itself to match your new sense of self. Who are you when no one is watching? More specifically, who are you in the quiet moments when you think about money, success, and your place in the world? The answer to this question determines your financial destiny more than your education, your connections, or even your circumstances. Your identity is the deepest program running in your consciousness, the fundamental story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. This story operates below the level of conscious thought, silently shaping every decision, every action, and every expectation. Until you transform your identity at this foundational level, all other efforts toward financial success will be like building a mansion on quicksand. Rachel discovered this truth during a period of intense frustration with her business. She had all the right strategies, worked harder than anyone she knew, and followed every piece of advice from successful mentors. Yet her income remained stubbornly stuck at a level that felt safe but unfulfilling. She couldn't understand why others seemed to break through barriers that remained immovable for her. The revelation came during a coaching session when Rachel was asked a simple but profound question. Who would you have to become to naturally attract the level of success you desire? As she contemplated this question, she realized that despite all her efforts to change her external circumstances, she had never actually changed who she believed herself to be. Deep in her subconscious, Rachel still identified as the small-town girl who didn't deserve big success, who should be grateful for whatever she got, who couldn't compete with people from more privileged backgrounds. This identity was like an invisible ceiling that prevented her from rising beyond what felt familiar and safe. The transformation began when Rachel started consciously constructing a new identity, not as a role she would play, but as the person she would genuinely become. She began studying the mindset, habits, and energy patterns of naturally prosperous people, not to copy their external behaviors, but to understand the identity from which those behaviors flowed. The neuroscience of self-concept. Your identity exists as a complex network of neural pathways that have been reinforced millions of times throughout your life. Every experience that confirmed who you are strengthened these pathways, while experiences that contradicted your self-concept were either rejected or reinterpreted to fit your existing identity structure. This is why people often sabotage their own success when it begins to exceed their identity boundaries. Their nervous system experiences success beyond their self-concept as literally dangerous, a threat to psychological survival that must be corrected. The subconscious mind will create circumstances to bring external reality back into alignment with internal identity, even if that means creating failure or limitation. But here's the revolutionary insight from neuroplasticity research. Your identity is not fixed. These neural networks can be rewired at any age through conscious, repetitive practice. Every time you think, feel, and act from a new identity, you strengthen new pathways while weakening old ones. Eventually, the new identity becomes stronger than the old one, creating a new baseline for what feels natural and possible. The key is understanding that identity transformation requires more than changing your thoughts. You must create new experiences that confirm your new sense of self. Your nervous system learns through lived experience, not just concepts. You must literally train your brain to recognize the new identity as familiar rather than foreign. Thomas applied this principle to transform his relationship with money and success. Instead of trying to think differently about wealth, he began systematically creating experiences that confirmed his new prosperous identity. He dressed the way his successful self would dress, made decisions from abundance rather than scarcity, and spoke with the confidence of someone who naturally attracted opportunities. At first, this felt like acting or pretending. But as Thomas consistently embodied this new identity, something remarkable happened. It began to feel more real than his old, limiting self-concept. His nervous system started accepting prosperity as natural rather than extraordinary, and his external circumstances began shifting to match this new internal reality. The architecture of prosperous identity. Prosperous people don't think about money the same way struggling people do. They don't feel the same emotions around financial decisions. They don't carry the same energy in business interactions. The differences go far deeper than strategy or technique. They operate from a fundamentally different identity. Understanding these distinctions allows you to consciously construct a prosperous identity rather than hoping it will develop naturally through external success. You can study the mindset patterns, emotional signatures, and energy frequencies of naturally wealthy people, and begin installing these elements as part of your own identity. Prosperous identity is characterized by several key elements. First, there's an assumption of worthiness. Successful people assume they deserve good things, not because they've earned them, but because worthiness is their natural state. They don't question whether they deserve wealth. They question how to best utilize the wealth that naturally flows to them. Second, they operate from abundance rather than scarcity in their daily thinking. When faced with decisions, they ask, how can we make this work? rather than, "Why won't this work?" They see opportunities where others see obstacles, solutions where others see problems, possibilities where others see limitations. Third, they maintain long-term perspective. Prosperous identity includes patience and strategic thinking that extends beyond immediate gratification. They make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains because their identity includes being someone who builds lasting success rather than seeking quick fixes. Fourth, they embrace continuous growth and learning. Wealthy people rarely believe they've arrived. They maintain beginner's mind and curiosity that keeps them open to new opportunities and better methods. Their identity includes being someone who constantly evolves and improves. Dissolving the imposter syndrome. One of the biggest obstacles to embodying prosperous identity is imposter syndrome, the fear that you're pretending to be someone you're not and will eventually be found out. This fear is actually evidence that your identity is expanding beyond its previous boundaries, which is exactly what needs to happen for transformation to occur. The key to dissolving imposter syndrome is recognizing that all identity is constructed. The you you've been is no more real or fixed than the you you're becoming. Your current identity was shaped by circumstances, experiences, and influences that were often beyond your control. The new identity you're consciously creating is actually more authentic because it represents your chosen evolution rather than unconscious programming. Moreover, the qualities you're developing aren't foreign to you. They're aspects of your potential that have always existed, but were suppressed by limiting beliefs and circumstances. When you embody confidence, abundance, and success, you're not becoming someone else. You're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. Maria worked through imposter syndrome by reframing her identity expansion as remembering rather than pretending. Instead of seeing her new prosperous behaviors as fake, she recognized them as expressions of her authentic nature that had been hidden beneath learned limitations. This shift allowed her to embody success with genuine confidence rather than nervous pretense. The language of prosperity. Your identity is constantly reinforced through the language you use, both in speaking to others and in your internal dialogue. The words you choose reflect your self-concept, while simultaneously strengthening or weakening your sense of identity. People with limiting financial identities use language that reinforces scarcity and limitation. They say things like, "I can't afford that," "Money doesn't grow on trees," "I'm not good with money," or "Rich people are greedy." Each time they use this language, they strengthen the neural pathways associated with financial limitation. Prosperous identity uses entirely different language patterns. Instead of, "I can't afford it," prosperous people say, "How can I afford it?" Instead of, "I'm not good with money," they say, "I'm learning to be better with money." Instead of focusing on what they lack, they speak about what they're creating. This isn't about using positive affirmations that feel fake or forced. It's about consciously choosing language that reflects the identity you're developing rather than the limitations you're dissolving. Over time, this new language becomes natural, indicating that the underlying identity shift is becoming genuine. The most powerful language shift involves moving from victim language to creator language. Instead of saying, "The economy is bad," prosperous identity says, "How can I thrive regardless of economic conditions?" Instead of, "My industry is struggling," it asks, "What opportunities does this challenge create?" This linguistic shift reflects and reinforces the fundamental identity difference between those who feel at the mercy of circumstances and those who know they create their reality. Embodying prosperous energy. Beyond thoughts and language, Prosperous identity carries a distinctive energy signature that others unconsciously recognize and respond to. This energy is characterized by confidence without arrogance, ambition without desperation, and success without need for external validation. When you truly embody prosperous identity, you naturally carry yourself differently. Your posture is more erect, your movements are more deliberate, your voice is more resonant. These aren't external techniques you practice. They're natural expressions of internal transformation. More importantly, your energy becomes magnetic to opportunities because you're vibrating at the frequency of success rather than struggle. People want to do business with you because your presence feels abundant rather than needy, confident rather than desperate, valuable rather than demanding. This energetic shift happens gradually as you consistently embody your new identity. You can't force it or fake it, but you can create the conditions for it to emerge naturally by consistently thinking, feeling, and acting from your prosperous self. Living as your future self. The ultimate practice for installing prosperous identity is learning to live as your future successful self in present moment circumstances. This doesn't mean pretending your current situation doesn't exist, but rather approaching current challenges from the consciousness of someone who has already overcome them. When faced with financial decisions, ask yourself, how would my abundantly successful self handle this situation? When encountering setbacks, respond as someone who views challenges as temporary experiences rather than permanent realities. When opportunities arise, evaluate them from the perspective of someone who naturally attracts prosperity. This practice gradually makes your future identity more familiar than your current limitations. Your nervous system begins recognizing success as normal rather than extraordinary, worthiness as natural rather than earned, and abundance as expected rather than hoped for. The transformation is complete when you no longer have to try to embody prosperous identity. It simply becomes who you are. Your new sense of self feels more authentic than your old limitations ever did. Success becomes inevitable because it's the natural expression of your transformed identity. You are not trying to become someone different. You are remembering who you truly are beneath all the learned limitations. Your prosperous identity is not a mask you wear or a role you play. It is the authentic expression of your highest potential, finally free to manifest in the world. Every thought you think from prosperity, every decision you make from abundance, every action you take from confidence, strengthens the neural pathways of your new identity. You are literally rewiring your brain to recognize success as your natural state. Your identity is your destiny. Transform who you believe yourself to be, and every external circumstance must eventually align with your new sense of self. You are not chasing success. You are becoming someone for whom success is the natural and inevitable result of who they are. Chapter 8. Synchronicity and Infinite Opportunities. When you align with your abundant nature, the universe begins orchestrating coincidences, connections, and circumstances that seem miraculous, but are actually the natural result of your elevated consciousness. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to be in the right place at the right time with extraordinary frequency? How opportunities just seem to find them. Connections appear out of nowhere, and doors open that they never even knew existed. These aren't random strokes of luck. They're the predictable result of a consciousness that has learned to dance with the intelligence of the universe itself. Synchronicity is not magic or wishful thinking. It's the natural organizing principle of a universe where consciousness and matter are intimately connected. When your internal state aligns with abundance, you begin to notice and attract the meaningful coincidences that have always been available, but were previously invisible to your scarcity-focused awareness. Jessica experienced this shift dramatically when she stopped trying to force her way to success and learned to follow the synchronistic flow of opportunities. For years, she had approached her marketing career like a battlefield, fighting for every client, pushing against resistance and exhausting herself trying to make things happen through willpower alone. The transformation began when Jessica learned to recognize the difference between forced action and inspired action. Instead of working harder, she began working in harmony with the natural flow of opportunities around her. She started paying attention to the subtle signs, unexpected connections, and seemingly random events that were actually guidance from the field of infinite possibilities. Within months, Jessica's experience of creating success became completely different. Instead of struggling upstream against resistance, she found herself flowing effortlessly toward opportunities that felt aligned and exciting. Clients began seeking her out through referral chains that seemed too perfect to be coincidental. Partnerships emerged from casual conversations. Resources appeared exactly when she needed them. What Jessica had discovered was that the universe is not indifferent to your success. It's actively conspiring to help you manifest your highest potential. But this cosmic support only becomes available when you align your consciousness with the frequency of flow rather than resistance, trust rather than control, abundance rather than scarcity. The physics of meaningful coincidences. From a quantum perspective, synchronicity makes perfect sense. At the fundamental level of reality, everything is connected through what physicists call the unified field, a realm where information travels instantaneously and all possibilities exist simultaneously. Your consciousness, when properly aligned, can tap into this field and access the organizing intelligence that orchestrates meaningful connections. When you shift your vibration to abundance and align with your highest potential, you send a clear signal to the quantum field. This signal begins organizing circumstances, people, and opportunities around your intention. What appears as coincidence is actually the field responding to your energetic frequency by bringing into your experience the resources that match your consciousness. This is why synchronicities increase dramatically when you're living authentically and pursuing your true purpose. Your alignment with your genuine path creates coherence between your inner state and your external expression, which amplifies your signal to the field. The stronger and more coherent your signal, the more precisely the universe can respond with perfect timing and connections. The key insight is that synchronicity is not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in creating through your level of consciousness. Random people don't experience meaningful coincidences. Disconnected people don't attract perfect timing. Closed-minded people don't notice the signs and signals that are always present. But when you cultivate the qualities that enable synchronicity, openness, awareness, trust, alignment, you begin to experience what seems like magic, but is actually the natural operation of a conscious universe, responding to conscious intention. Developing synchronicity, awareness. The first step in partnering with synchronicity is developing the awareness to recognize it when it appears. Most people are so focused on their predetermined plans and limited expectations that they miss the opportunities the universe is constantly presenting. Synchronicity often appears in forms you wouldn't expect. The perfect business partner might introduce themselves at a grocery store rather than a networking event. The solution to your financial challenge might come from a conversation with someone who seems completely unrelated to your situation. The opportunity that transforms your career might arrive through a random email or an unexpected phone call. This is why maintaining beginner's mind is so crucial for synchronicity awareness. When you think you know how success should appear or where opportunities should come from, you become blind to the infinite creative ways the universe might deliver exactly what you need. Developing synchronicity awareness requires cultivating what I call relaxed alertness. Being fully present and aware while holding your goals and intentions lightly. You remain committed to your vision while staying open to unexpected pathways that might lead there more elegantly than anything you could have planned. Michael learned this lesson when he was struggling to grow his consulting practice through traditional marketing methods. Despite months of networking events, cold outreach, and advertising, he wasn't attracting the high-quality clients he desired. His approaches felt forced and produced minimal results. The breakthrough came when Michael shifted from pushing to receiving. Instead of trying to make things happen, he began each day by setting the intention to be of service and then paying attention to whatever opportunities presented themselves. He started having deeper conversations with people he met, following up on casual suggestions, and pursuing connections that felt energetically aligned rather than strategically logical. Within weeks, Michael's experience completely transformed. A casual conversation with his neighbor led to an introduction to a CEO who became his biggest client. A delayed flight put him next to someone who offered him a speaking opportunity. A wrong number led to a conversation that opened an entirely new market for his services. These weren't random coincidences. They were the natural result of Michael's shift from controlling to flowing, from forcing to allowing, from scarcity-driven action to abundance-inspired response. Following the breadcrumbs. Synchronicity rarely reveals the entire path at once. Instead, it offers what I call breadcrumbs, small signs, opportunities, or connections that point toward your next step without showing you the final destination. Learning to follow these breadcrumbs while trusting the larger pattern requires a different kind of faith than most people are comfortable with. Traditional success strategies encourage you to create detailed 5-year plans, set specific milestones, and follow predetermined paths. But synchronistic success often involves following a trail of clues that leads to destinations you never could have imagined or planned. This doesn't mean abandoning goals or vision. It means holding them as magnetic points of attraction while remaining flexible about the specific path that leads there. You know where you want to go, but you allow the universe to show you the most elegant and efficient route. Following breadcrumbs requires developing comfort with uncertainty and faith in the intelligence that's orchestrating your path. Each breadcrumb might seem insignificant on its own, but when you follow them consistently, they weave together into a pattern that leads to opportunities beyond your original imagination. Sarah experienced this when she decided to transition from corporate law to starting her own wellness business. Instead of creating a rigid business plan, she committed to following whatever felt aligned and expansive, even when the connections weren't immediately obvious. A casual conversation about stress with a colleague led to an invitation to speak at a women's networking group. That speaking engagement connected her with someone who needed exactly the services Sarah was developing. That client referred her to someone who was launching a wellness center and needed a legal consultant with Sarah's unique background. Within 6 months, Sarah had built a thriving practice that combined her legal expertise with her passion for wellness in ways she never could have planned. Each breadcrumb had seemed minor in isolation, but following them had led to a career that perfectly integrated all her skills and interests. The art of divine timing. One of the most challenging aspects of synchronistic success is learning to trust divine timing. Opportunities often appear not when you think you need them, but when you're truly ready to receive and utilize them effectively. This requires patience and faith that can feel uncomfortable when you're eager for results. Divine timing operates according to principles beyond linear cause and effect. Sometimes you need to develop certain skills before an opportunity appears. Sometimes market conditions need to shift. Sometimes connections need to be established between people who will later facilitate your success. The universe is orchestrating multiple variables simultaneously, and perfect timing considers factors you couldn't possibly track consciously. Learning to trust this timing means releasing the anxiety that comes from trying to control the pace of your manifestation. It means understanding that delays are not denials, and that apparent setbacks are often setups for even better opportunities. This trust develops as you begin to recognize the pattern in your past experiences. You start to see how opportunities that seem to come too late actually arrived at exactly the right moment. You recognize how perceived failures redirected you toward paths that ultimately served you better than your original plans. Creating synchronicity magnets. While you cannot force synchronicity, you can create conditions that naturally attract meaningful coincidences and opportunities. These conditions act like magnets that draw synchronistic experiences into your awareness and accessibility. The first magnet is clarity of intention. When you're clear about what you truly want to create, you send a coherent signal to the field that makes it easier for the universe to respond precisely. Vague desires produce vague results, but clear intentions create clear pathways for manifestation. The second magnet is elevated emotion. When you feel genuinely excited, grateful, or passionate about your vision, you amplify your signal and speed up the universe's response. Strong positive emotion acts like rocket fuel for synchronicity, accelerating the organization of circumstances around your intention. The third magnet is service orientation. When your goals include contributing value to others rather than just personal gain, you align with the universe's natural tendency toward evolution and growth. Service-oriented intentions receive stronger support because they harmonize with the greater good. The fourth magnet is present moment awareness. Synchronicity happens in the now, not in anxious thoughts about the future or regretful thoughts about the past. The more present you are, the more likely you are to notice and act upon the opportunities that are constantly appearing. The fifth magnet is gratitude for what's already flowing. Appreciating the synchronicities you've already experienced, however small, creates an energetic invitation for more. Gratitude is magnetic to abundance because it confirms your recognition of the universe's support. Responding to synchronistic opportunities. Recognizing synchronicity is only half the equation. You must also have the courage and wisdom to act upon the opportunities it presents. Many people notice meaningful coincidences but fail to follow through because the opportunities seem too unusual, too risky, or too different from their planned path. Synchronistic opportunities often require stepping outside your comfort zone and trusting the intelligence of the moment rather than the logic of your analytical mind. They might involve talking to strangers, exploring unfamiliar territories, or saying yes to invitations that seem unrelated to your goals. The key is learning to distinguish between synchronistic opportunities and random distractions. True synchronicity has a quality of rightness that you feel energetically. It might challenge you to grow, but it doesn't create anxiety or dread. It feels expansive rather than contractive, exciting rather than exhausting. When you encounter a potential synchronistic opportunity, pause and tune into your body's wisdom. Does this feel aligned with your highest vision? Does it generate energy or drain energy? Does it feel like flow or force? Your intuitive guidance system is remarkably accurate at distinguishing between opportunities that serve your evolution and distractions that don't. Living in the flow state. The ultimate mastery of synchronicity comes when you learn to live in what athletes and artists call flow state, a condition where you're so aligned with the present moment that right action happens effortlessly and opportunities appear with perfect timing. In flow state, the boundaries between self and universe become permeable. You're not trying to make things happen. You're allowing yourself to be used by the creative intelligence that wants to express through you. Your personal will aligns with cosmic will, creating a partnership that produces results beyond what either could achieve alone. Living in flow state requires releasing the illusion of separate control and embracing collaborative creation with the intelligence of life itself. You maintain clear intentions while staying fluid about methods. You work with enthusiasm while holding outcomes lightly. You plan wisely while remaining open to better possibilities than you could imagine. When you master this balance, synchronicity becomes your natural way of navigating life. Opportunities appear not as lucky accidents but as natural expressions of your aligned consciousness. Resources arrive not as desperate rescues, but as abundant support for your evolution. You begin to trust that the universe is not only supporting your success, but is actually more invested in your prosperity than you are, because your individual abundance contributes to the abundance of the whole. In this trust, you discover that synchronicity is not an occasional gift, but the natural operating system of a conscious universe responding to conscious intention. The opportunities you seek are seeking you with equal intensity. Learn to align with the flow of synchronicity and watch as the universe begins orchestrating the most elegant and miraculous path to your abundant future. Chapter 9. Inspired Action versus Desperate Action. The difference between struggle and success is not how hard you work. It's the state of consciousness from which your actions arise. Inspired action creates miracles, while desperate action creates more reasons to be desperate. Why do some people seem to accomplish extraordinary results with apparent ease, while others exhaust themselves, working twice as hard for half the results? The answer lies not in the quantity or even the quality of their actions, but in the energetic frequency from which those actions originate. There are only two fundamental sources of action: inspiration and desperation. Every choice you make, every step you take, every effort you exert stems from one of these two states of consciousness. The difference between them determines not only your level of success, but your experience of the journey toward that success. Mark learned this distinction the hard way. As an ambitious entrepreneur, he had always believed that success required grinding, hustling, and pushing through resistance. He worked 18-hour days, sacrificed relationships, and ignored his health in pursuit of his business goals. Despite his tremendous effort, his results remained frustratingly mediocre. The turning point came during a period of complete burnout, when Mark was forced to step back and examine his approach. He realized that almost all of his actions were driven by fear. Fear of failure, fear of not having enough, fear of being left behind. This desperate energy contaminated everything he touched, creating resistance, pushing people away, and generating stress that clouded his judgment. When Mark learned to distinguish between inspired action and desperate action, everything changed. Instead of working from anxiety about what might happen if he didn't succeed, he began acting from excitement about what he could create. Instead of pushing against obstacles, he learned to flow around them. Instead of forcing opportunities, he began attracting them through aligned action. The transformation wasn't just in his results, though they improved dramatically, but in his experience of creating success. What had once felt like an uphill battle became an exciting adventure. Work stopped feeling like work and started feeling like play. Success became sustainable because it was sourced from energy that renewed itself, rather than energy that depleted itself. The anatomy of desperate action. Desperate action arises from the survival programming of your lower brain centers, the ancient neural circuits designed to help you escape from danger. When you perceive scarcity, threat, or inadequacy, these primitive systems activate, flooding your body with stress hormones and narrowing your awareness to immediate threats and quick fixes. In this state, your actions are driven by what you're trying to avoid, rather than what you're trying to create. You work harder not because you're excited about your vision, but because you're terrified of failure. You pursue opportunities not because they align with your purpose, but because you're afraid of missing out. You make decisions not from wisdom and clarity, but from urgency and fear. Desperate action has several recognizable characteristics. It feels forced, effortful, and exhausting. It generates resistance from others and obstacles from circumstances. It produces short-term gains that often lead to long-term problems. Most importantly, it feels contractive, like you're swimming upstream against the natural flow of life. When you act from desperation, you unconsciously broadcast an energy of neediness that repels the very things you're trying to attract. Potential clients sense your desperation and feel pushed away. Opportunities seem to slip through your fingers because your grasping energy interferes with natural timing. Resources become scarce because your scarcity consciousness creates scarcity experiences. Lisa experienced this pattern for years in her real estate career. Despite her knowledge and work ethic, she struggled to build the successful practice she envisioned. Her interactions with clients felt strained because her underlying anxiety about making sales created pressure that made people uncomfortable. The shift began when Lisa realized that her desperate need for each transaction was actually sabotaging her success. Clients could sense her neediness, which made them question her expertise and feel manipulated rather than served. Her energy of desperation was literally repelling the success she was working so hard to create. The nature of inspired action. Inspired action emerges from an entirely different source, the expanded awareness and creative intelligence of your higher consciousness. When you're connected to your authentic purpose and aligned with your natural gifts, action becomes an expression of joy rather than a response to fear. Inspired action feels effortless, not because it requires no effort, but because the effort flows from passion rather than pressure. You work intensely when inspiration strikes, but the work energizes rather than depletes you. You pursue goals not because you have to, but because you're genuinely excited about the possibilities they represent. The most remarkable quality of inspired action is its magnetic nature. When you act from genuine inspiration, you naturally attract the people, resources, and opportunities that support your vision. Your enthusiasm becomes contagious, drawing others into collaboration rather than pushing them away through neediness. Inspired action also has perfect timing. Instead of forcing things to happen according to your predetermined schedule, you learn to recognize the natural rhythms of creation and align your efforts with them. You work intensely when the time is right, and you rest when consolidation is needed. This doesn't mean inspired action is always easy or comfortable. True inspiration often calls you to stretch beyond your current capabilities and venture into unknown territories. But the discomfort comes from growth rather than fear, from expansion rather than contraction. You feel challenged but not overwhelmed, stretched but not broken. The energetic signature of each approach. The difference between inspired and desperate action is immediately apparent in their energetic signatures. When you observe someone taking desperate action, you can feel their underlying anxiety, even if they're trying to hide it. Their energy feels hurried, tense, and slightly chaotic. They seem to be running from something rather than toward something. Conversely, when you witness someone taking inspired action, their energy feels completely different. There's a sense of flow, confidence, and natural timing. Even when they're working intensely, they seem relaxed and present. They appear to be moving toward an exciting future rather than away from a feared past. These different energetic signatures produce dramatically different responses from the world around you. People naturally want to support inspired action because it feels expansive and life-enhancing. They instinctively resist desperate action because it feels demanding and energy-draining. Michael noticed this difference when he transitioned from desperate to inspired action in his consulting practice. When he was operating from desperation, potential clients would often cancel meetings, negotiations would become adversarial, and even successful projects would feel draining for everyone involved. When Michael learned to act from inspiration, focusing on the excitement of helping clients transform their businesses rather than his need to make money, everything changed. Clients began seeking him out rather than him chasing them. Negotiations became collaborative rather than combative. Projects became energizing rather than exhausting, both for him and his clients. The external actions were often identical, but the consciousness behind them transformed every interaction and outcome. Recognizing your source of action. Learning to distinguish between inspired and desperate action in your own experience requires developing subtle awareness of your internal state. The difference isn't always obvious because desperate action can disguise itself as ambition, and inspired action might seem impractical to your logical mind. The most reliable indicator is your emotional state before, during, and after taking action. Desperate action is preceded by anxiety, accompanied by tension, and followed by either temporary relief or increased stress. Inspired action is preceded by excitement, accompanied by flow, and followed by satisfaction and increased energy. Pay attention to your body's signals. Desperate action creates physical tension, shallow breathing, and a sense of urgency that feels uncomfortable. Inspired action creates physical vitality, deep breathing, and a sense of purpose that feels sustainable. Notice the quality of your thoughts. Desperate action is accompanied by worried thoughts about what might go wrong, comparisons with competitors, and concern about timing and circumstances. Inspired action is accompanied by creative thoughts about possibilities, appreciation for opportunities, and trust in natural timing. Observe the responses you generate from others. If your actions consistently create resistance, cancellations, or complications, you're likely operating from desperation. If your actions naturally generate support, synchronicities, and smooth progress, you're probably aligned with inspiration. Shifting from desperation to inspiration. The transition from desperate to inspired action isn't just a matter of changing your mindset. It requires addressing the underlying states of consciousness that generate each type of action. You cannot force yourself to feel inspired any more than you can force yourself to fall asleep. But you can create conditions that naturally allow inspiration to emerge. The first step is addressing the scarcity programming that generates desperate action. When you genuinely feel abundant and worthy, desperate action becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to grasp, push, or force because you trust in your ability to create and attract what you need. The second step is connecting with your authentic purpose and vision. Inspiration flows naturally when you're aligned with what genuinely excites you and serves something greater than your personal needs. When your actions express your deepest values and highest aspirations, effort becomes effortless. The third step is developing patience and trust in natural timing. Desperate action often stems from the belief that you must make things happen immediately, or they won't happen at all. Learning to recognize and align with natural rhythms allows you to act powerfully when the time is right, rather than frantically all the time. The fourth step is cultivating present moment awareness. Inspiration exists only in the now, not in anxious thoughts about the future or regretful thoughts about the past. The more present you become, the more accessible inspiration becomes. The paradox of effortless effort. One of the most confusing aspects of inspired action is that it can involve tremendous effort while still feeling effortless. This apparent paradox resolves when you understand the difference between effort generated by resistance and effort generated by enthusiasm. When you're fighting against your nature, circumstances, or natural timing, even small actions require enormous effort because you're working against the flow of life. But when you're aligned with your authentic path and natural rhythms, you can work intensely for hours while feeling energized rather than depleted. Think of the difference between swimming upstream and swimming downstream. Swimming upstream requires tremendous effort to make minimal progress, and the effort feels exhausting because you're fighting the current. Swimming downstream allows you to move rapidly with relatively little effort because you're working with the natural flow. Inspired action works with the natural currents of life rather than against them. You might swim powerfully, but you're swimming in the direction the river is already flowing. The effort amplifies natural momentum rather than opposing it. Sustaining inspired action. The greatest challenge in living from inspired action is maintaining that state of consciousness consistently, especially when facing obstacles, setbacks, or periods of uncertainty. It's easy to slip back into desperate action when external pressures mount or when results don't appear as quickly as expected. Sustaining inspired action requires developing what I call inspired discipline, the ability to consistently return to your source of inspiration, even when circumstances tempt you toward desperation. This discipline isn't about forcing yourself to feel inspired, but about creating regular practices that naturally reconnect you with your authentic enthusiasm. These practices might include daily meditation to quiet mental noise and connect with inner wisdom, regular visualization of your inspiring vision to maintain emotional connection to your goals, consistent gratitude practices to appreciate what's already flowing in your life, and periodic assessment of your actions to ensure they're aligned with inspiration rather than desperation. Most importantly, sustaining inspired action requires self-compassion when you inevitably slip into desperate patterns. Instead of judging yourself for acting from fear or need, you can recognize these moments as valuable feedback that redirects you toward more aligned action. The multiplication effect. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of inspired action is its multiplication effect. When you act from genuine inspiration, your actions don't just produce direct results. They create ripple effects that generate additional opportunities, resources, and support that you could never have planned or predicted. Inspired action is inherently creative, generating new possibilities rather than just executing predetermined plans. Desperate action is inherently reactive, responding to existing limitations rather than transcending them. When you consistently act from inspiration, you become a force of creation in the world, naturally attracting the people and circumstances that support your highest vision. Your inspired energy becomes a magnet for miracles, synchronicities, and breakthroughs that transform not only your own life, but the lives of everyone your actions touch. The choice between inspired action and desperate action is the choice between partnering with the creative force of the universe or struggling against it. Choose inspiration, and every action becomes a step toward miracle. Choose desperation, and every action becomes a step toward exhaustion. Your next action is waiting to be taken. From which consciousness will you take it? Chapter 10. Living the Manuscript. The true test of transformation is not how well you understand these principles, but how completely you embody them in every moment of your daily life. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it becomes your lived experience. After 9 chapters of exploring the deepest secrets of abundance consciousness, you stand at the threshold of the most important chapter of all, not the one you're reading, but the one you're about to write with your life. Everything you've learned about reprogramming your subconscious, embodying abundance, and aligning with quantum possibilities means nothing unless it becomes your moment-to-moment reality. The Manuscript of Abundance is not a book you read. It's a life you live. It's not a theory you understand. It's a consciousness you embody. It's not a destination you reach. It's a way of being you master. The journey from intellectual understanding to embodied wisdom is where most people falter, not because they lack the knowledge, but because they underestimate what it means to truly live these principles. Catherine discovered this truth during what she later called her year of integration. She had studied abundance principles for years, attended seminars, read dozens of books, and could eloquently discuss the quantum nature of manifestation. Yet her financial reality remained stubbornly mediocre, creating a gap between her knowledge and her experience that felt increasingly frustrating. The transformation began when Catherine stopped trying to apply these principles as techniques and started living them as truth. Instead of doing abundance practices for 30 minutes each morning and then spending the rest of her day in familiar patterns of limitation, she committed to embodying abundance consciousness in every interaction, every decision, and every moment. This wasn't about perfection. It was about consistency. Catherine began to notice how many times each day she would slip back into old patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting. She observed how quickly she would forget her abundant identity when faced with challenges or triggered by circumstances. But instead of judging these moments, she used them as opportunities to practice returning to her new consciousness. Within months, Catherine's external reality began reflecting her internal transformation in ways that still amazed her. Opportunities appeared with increasing frequency. Her income doubled, then tripled. More importantly, her experience of life became infused with a sense of magic and possibility that made success feel natural rather than extraordinary. What Catherine had learned was that living the manuscript of abundance requires moving beyond episodic practice to continuous embodiment, beyond temporary states to permanent traits, beyond knowing about abundance to being abundance itself. The integration challenge. The gap between understanding and embodying abundance principles is where most transformation attempts fail. It's one thing to feel inspired while reading about quantum possibilities, and quite another to maintain that inspiration while dealing with a difficult client or a challenging financial situation. Your current personality, the familiar collection of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors you've practiced for years, has tremendous momentum, even after profound insights and genuine commitments to change. The gravitational pull of familiar patterns can quickly draw you back into old ways of being. This is not a weakness or failure. It's the natural operation of neural pathways that have been strengthened through repetition. Your brain is designed to automate familiar patterns to conserve energy. The very efficiency that allows you to drive a car without conscious thought also makes it challenging to consistently embody new ways of thinking and being. The solution isn't to fight against this natural tendency, but to work with it by making your new abundant consciousness more familiar than your old limiting patterns. This requires what neuroscientists call conscious competence, the deliberate practice of new patterns until they become as automatic as the old ones. The integration challenge is particularly acute with abundance consciousness because it touches every aspect of your life. It's not enough to think abundantly about money if you think scarcely about relationships. It's not enough to feel worthy of financial success if you feel unworthy of love and respect. True abundance consciousness is a complete way of being that must be integrated across all areas of your experience. The daily practice of embodiment. Living the manuscript of abundance requires transforming your ordinary day into a continuous opportunity for conscious practice. Every interaction becomes a chance to embody your new identity. Every decision becomes an opportunity to choose from abundance rather than scarcity. Every challenge becomes a chance to respond from your highest consciousness rather than your conditioned patterns. This doesn't mean living in a state of artificial positivity or denying the realities of your current circumstances. It means bringing your abundant consciousness to whatever situation you're facing, whether it's pleasant or challenging, expected or surprising. When you check your bank account, you practice feeling grateful for what's there while maintaining excitement about what's growing. When you encounter a financial setback, you practice responding from the wisdom of someone who knows that temporary circumstances don't define permanent reality. When opportunities arise, you practice evaluating them from confidence rather than desperation. The key is making these practices so natural that they become your default responses rather than special efforts you have to remember to make. This requires what I call mindful repetition, consciously choosing your abundant responses until they become unconsciously automatic. Robert transformed his entire business by applying this principle consistently. Instead of reserving his abundance consciousness for meditation sessions, he brought it into every phone call, every email, and every business decision. When potential clients called, he responded from genuine excitement about serving them rather than anxiety about making the sale. When invoices needed to be sent, he felt appreciation for the value he'd provided rather than worry about whether he'd be paid promptly. These subtle shifts in consciousness created dramatic shifts in results. Robert's energy became so naturally abundant that clients began referring him to others spontaneously. His confidence in his value allowed him to raise his prices without resistance. His genuine service orientation attracted clients who valued his contributions and paid him willingly. Navigating the inevitable setbacks. No transformation journey is linear, and abundance consciousness is no exception. There will be days when you forget everything you've learned and revert to familiar patterns of limitation. There will be moments when your circumstances trigger old fears and insecurities so strongly that your new consciousness seems to disappear entirely. These setbacks are not evidence that the principles don't work or that you're not capable of transformation. They are an inevitable and necessary part of the integration process. Each time you catch yourself in old patterns and consciously choose to return to your abundant consciousness, you strengthen the neural pathways of your new identity. The key is learning to navigate these setbacks without judgment or discouragement. Instead of seeing them as failures, you can recognize them as valuable feedback about areas where your new consciousness needs more development. Instead of using them as evidence that change is impossible, you can use them as opportunities to practice self-compassion and recommitment to your highest vision. Maria learned this lesson during a particularly challenging period when her business faced unexpected difficulties. Old fears about financial security arose with such intensity that she found herself making decisions from panic rather than presence. For several weeks, she felt like she had lost all the progress she had made in developing abundance consciousness. The turning point came when Maria realized that her setback was actually revealing deeper layers of programming that needed to be addressed. Instead of fighting against her fear, she used it as information about where her consciousness needed more healing and development. She approached her temporary regression with curiosity rather than criticism, using it as fuel for even deeper transformation. This compassionate approach to her own process allowed Maria to integrate her experiences more completely and emerge from the challenge with stronger abundance consciousness than she had possessed before the difficulty arose. Abundance as a way of being. As your practice deepens, you begin to realize that abundance is not something you do. It's something you are. It's not a state you achieve temporarily during meditation or visualization, but a fundamental quality of consciousness that colors every aspect of your experience. This shift from doing abundance to being abundance represents a quantum leap in your development. Instead of having to remember to apply abundance principles, you naturally embody them because they have become integral to your identity. Instead of working to maintain abundant thoughts and feelings, they arise spontaneously because abundance has become your natural state. At this level of integration, abundance consciousness operates like breathing, automatically, continuously, and without conscious effort. You no longer have to remind yourself to feel worthy of prosperity because unworthiness has become foreign to your system. You no longer have to practice grateful thinking because appreciation has become your natural response to life. This doesn't mean you become complacent or stop growing. Rather, you evolve from someone who practices abundance consciousness to someone who simply is abundant consciousness. Your continued growth happens from this foundation rather than toward it. The ripple effect of living the manuscript. When you truly live the manuscript of abundance, your transformation extends far beyond your personal financial reality. Your embodied consciousness becomes a transmission that affects everyone whose life you touch. Your family begins to experience new possibilities as they witness your transformation. Your colleagues and clients are inspired by your example to examine their own relationship with abundance. This ripple effect happens not through preaching or teaching, but simply through being. When someone encounters authentic abundance consciousness, they feel something shift in their own possibility. Your presence becomes permission for others to remember their own abundant nature. Children are particularly sensitive to this transmission. When they grow up around someone who genuinely embodies abundance consciousness, they absorb these patterns as natural rather than special. You become part of breaking the generational cycles of limitation that have been passed down through your family lineage. Communities and organizations are also affected by the presence of individuals who truly live abundance consciousness. Your embodied prosperity creates space for others to prosper. Your success becomes evidence that success is possible. Your joy in creating value inspires others to discover their own gifts. The evolutionary purpose. Living the manuscript of abundance serves a purpose greater than personal prosperity. As more individuals embody this consciousness, humanity itself begins to shift toward a more abundant and sustainable way of being. Your personal transformation becomes part of a larger evolutionary movement toward conscious creation rather than unconscious reaction. This perspective transforms your commitment to abundance consciousness from self-improvement to service. You're not just changing your own life. You're participating in the conscious evolution of human potential. Your success becomes not just personal achievement, but contribution to the collective demonstration that abundance is our natural state. This understanding can provide additional motivation during challenging periods of integration. When practicing abundance consciousness feels difficult or your progress seems slow, remember that your efforts serve something much larger than your individual benefit. You are pioneering new possibilities, not just for yourself, but for everyone who will follow the path you are helping to create. The continuous journey. The manuscript of abundance has no final chapter because consciousness has no limits to its expansion. As you embody one level of abundance, new possibilities reveal themselves. As you integrate certain principles, deeper layers of wisdom become accessible. The journey is not toward a destination, but into an ever-expanding exploration of your infinite potential. This recognition helps you approach your development with patience and excitement, rather than urgency and pressure. There is no hurry because there is nowhere to arrive. There is no deadline because consciousness is eternal. There is only the continuous joy of discovering what becomes possible as you align more completely with your abundant nature. Your commitment is not to perfection, but to practice. Your goal is not to never slip back into old patterns, but to notice more quickly when you do and return more easily to your abundant consciousness. Your success is measured not by the absence of challenges, but by your increasingly skillful navigation of whatever life presents. The manuscript of abundance is being written through your daily choices, your moment-to-moment consciousness, and your ever-deepening embodiment of prosperity as a way of being. Each day offers new pages to write, new possibilities to explore, and new depths of abundance to discover and express. You are not reading the manuscript. You are living it. You are not learning about abundance. You are becoming abundance itself. The transformation is not something that will happen to you in the future. It is happening through you right now, in this moment, as you choose to embody the consciousness that creates the reality you desire to experience. This is your manuscript. This is your moment. This is your magnificent opportunity to live the abundance that you are.